What up, y'all? My name is Angel, better known as Boss Jelly. I am today's host of Cognac Conversations. I'm a creative, I'm a designer. I've been making clothes for about 9 years now. My business is called Boss Mentality, and it is just what it is. It's literally my journey of growing and evolving into having a boss mentality. So today we are going to be hosting Cognac Conversations. Welcome to the show.
Jelly, thank you for the introduction. And today, man, we're just going to sit here and pop it off for y'all. You've seen the signs. I made you take the shots. You've seen all the promo and social media, anything that we've had to do for Cognac Conversations, you've been able to see it. And so today we want to bring y'all the show. So I want to tell you guys, welcome to Cognac Conversations.
Welcome to Cognac Conversations. This is fire.
It is.
What is this?
So we're going to kind of how the show is going to go. We're going to introduce each drink to you at the end of the season. So stay tuned. You got to watch Cognac Conversations. We're going to get into some good topics today. And we'll tell y'all what the drink is. We'll tell you how we made it. And we'll introduce our bartender a little later on. And then we'll give you the name of the drink and how you can make the drink. So
Bet.
I'm ready, Jelly. Let's pop it off.
Let's do it. So I want to know, where did Cognac Conversations even come from? Like, where is it? Where did it start?
So Cognac Conversations honestly started in 2009. It was not called Cognac Conversations. Podcasts weren't a thing. This was an idea that I came up with at 20 years old. On my 21st birthday, I made a Facebook post about something called Sunday Conversation that I never brought to life. If you talk about 4 years later, me and my brother T. Rogers, who's unfortunately he's not able to be here with us today, but T. Rogers and I were sitting in the car and we used to drink a bunch of Hennessy, right? We used to drink a bunch of Hennessy. And so we initially were calling it Hennessy Conversations. That's where the name came from. And then fast forward about 3 years later, podcast word thing. And I was sitting in my living room and one of my homeboys, one of the producers of this show, he said, don't call it Hennessy Conversations, call it Cognac Conversations. And he basically told us that we were limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
And we don't want to limit ourselves, right? So, I mean, I do endeavor in all cognac.
Right.
That's what
Hennessy
I like.
was just the first
Yeah.
one.
I mean, Hennessy near and dear to my
really
heart.
locked
Yeah.
in.
So I want to say that Hennessy is near and dear to my heart. Like that's it, right? That was the first drink.
Hennessy is the OG cognac.
yeah.
I think everybody had a Hennessy phase, like a Henny phase, where they were just drinking Hennessy. So what were the conversations like in the car? Y'all would be drinking the ones you can remember, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, I can remember a bunch of them. So honestly, if you've ever had a conversation with me, and maybe you had many conversations, you ever had a conversation with T. Rogers, we're gonna talk about life, right? We're gonna talk about life. We're gonna talk about leadership. We're gonna talk about finance, although he's a better finance guy than I am.
Yeah.
But it was just that, right? Cognac Conversations is our journey out of where we come from. You know, we come from small town Arkansas, so that's always home for us. But we always had big city dreams. So ending up in Dallas and DTX, it almost happened naturally, right? Like it wasn't our plan to move here, right? Tori moved here first. Like 2 years before I did. And I'll never forget, it was not our plan to come to Dallas. Like my plan was to go to Houston. His plan was Atlanta.
Okay.
He ended up in Dallas. And then I remember like 2 years later calling him on the phone and like, hey bro, I need to come stay at your crib to find a place. The voice on the phone wasn't Tori that responded to me. It was Perk. Dix, as everybody know him. It was Dix. Dix was on the phone. And if he remembers this, he initially said, like, shit, I'm out here looking for a crib too. And I'm like, Perk. And he like, yeah, I'm coming too. So I'm like, damn, like, the whole gang going. Like now,
Right.
like all of us coming, and so like he came, and then I was supposed to come like directly behind him, but things happened with my job, so I got here like a few months later.
Okay.
But we initially did the New Year's party above the old Park Ave. And we got the picture. All of us were there for New Year's, and it was like, bro, like this is how we stepping into 2020.
Right.
Little did we know COVID was about to kick our ass, but we all were here before COVID, right? And it happened naturally. It happened organically. It was like, damn, like my dog's here, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so back home, you know, we'll get into this later in the season, but back home, we all had a love for throwing parties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you come to Dallas and they formed IMG. And initially they asked me like, hey, bro, you got to get down. And I'm like, nah. I'm like, I'm going to support 100%, but I'm like, nah. And I said nah because I couldn't commit.
Okay.
Like I worked out of town so much and people didn't really understand the fact that like if I can't commit to it, I'm not going to do it. So people didn't understand the fact that when I was here, that I lived here. They always thought that I was coming in town, like partying, kicking it, getting drunk. And I was like, nah, I live here.
You just working.
So, yeah. So when I finally was able to like commit to being in Dallas, you know, different things changed with my job. I was like, all right, now it's time. So then I got down with my brothers. We went full steam with IMG, and you know, they pushed me to launch this thing. They heard me talk about it so much, they knew about it so much, and they were like, nah, it's time, bro. Like you got to do it. Like now, you know, you supported us. It's time for us to support you.
Right.
And so the motivation came from like the small stuff, right? Like finding a location. Them believing in my dream as much as I believe in my dream. Like that's the biggest thing. And all of that in itself is Cognac Conversations because we're going to sip some yak. We're going to talk about real life.
Yeah.
We got great people coming into this show. You know, I'm excited about this thing. Some days, I'll be honest with you, some days I want to quit.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot, right? But I get those phone calls like, what we doing with it? You know what I mean? What's next? I'll get those text messages like, hey, bro, you should do this for Cognac Conversation. You should do that. And I'm like, damn. All these people around me believing into it, like, I got to give it my all.
Get it, yeah.
You know what I mean? I got to give it my all. And I've said this so many times that, you know, this is something that I want to put all of my effort into so that my kids, right? When my kids say, what was my dad known for? He was known for giving his all. And then now I could even have something where I could go back and show them, or if I'm not around, right? If I'm not around, I expect my kids to, you know, be tapped in with my homeboys, or my homeboys could be like, hey, let me show you what your dad created.
Right, right.
And so like, that's big for me, right? It's just, you know, owning something, believing in it, and then just going forth with it 100%.
Yeah.
So that's what Cognac Conversations is about. And that's, you know, that's pretty much the gist of how it all started.
So what I'm hearing is telling the truth, building a legacy, and sharing it with the world. That's pretty much what I'm taking from what you're saying.
Yeah.
The Cognac Conversations is.
So people have heard me say a million times, organic and authentic. And that's what it's going to be about. We're going to be organic. We're going to be authentic. And we're going to have some great drinks in the midst of it.
And this is a great drink. Okay. Okay. So now that we kind of talked about what Cognac Conversations is, I really want to get into what even started you to have these conversations. Like, I really want to dive into, I mean, I know you're going to dive into it throughout the season, exactly what those conversations are like, but I really want to get into what even gave you that motivation to have these real conversations, right? Because I'm sure, like you were saying, y'all grew up in a small town. You know, the mindset when you're from a small town is very kind of small. It's closed-minded a little bit, you know? What kind of gave you that motivation, or what did you see, or what happened that made you want to say like, nah, that's not, you know, we're not doing that. We're going to do this over here. Like, what gave you that motivation?
I didn't want to be a statistic. And what I mean by that is I grew up without my father. He was incarcerated, right? I had a great stepfather, right? My stepfather and my mom been together 30 years now at this point.
Okay.
But I didn't want to be a statistic of, you know, I grew up without my father who was incarcerated, and that was my future. And at a point in my life, I was always a smart kid, but I felt like that may be my future, right? But when my mom would talk about my dad, she would always say, whenever y'all link up, you're going to see how ambitious he was. And so I never blamed my dad for being in his situation, right? I never blamed him for being incarcerated. I it kind of motivated me, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I would have those conversations. You got to motivate yourself sometimes, right?
Right.
So you have to sit there and you got to, talk to yourself. And that's what I would do. I was like, hey, bro, you can do this. And what I realized, I had a bunch of friends around me, a bunch of people around me, and people I would encounter along my journey that they would motivate me. And I'm like, I like this. And as I got older and I got of age, we were having those conversations. We were drinking Hennessy.
Because you wanted to get better, but it was just like everything around you is.
Yeah.
So you had to kind of talk yourself through.
Yeah. Had to coach myself up. And so then, like I said, it was like 2013. Me and T. Rogers, my boy, would show up at my house every day. And we would sit there and talk about life. And then on the weekends, we would actually go out and party, hit the clubs, and we kept 2 bottles of Hennessy with us too. It wasn't nothing.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that was it. Like I didn't want to be a statistic. And when I reconnected with my father in July 2017, like 19 years later.
Wow.
And so instantly we kind of hit it off, right? Like we hit it off, and he was able to see like the things that I was doing, the vision that I had. And he always had some type of positivity for me, right? This man been all over this country. Even incarcerated, he had a big effect on like society, right?
Wow.
Like he had friends. He could make a phone call. Like he had some power.
Yeah.
And so my mom, man, I gotta give her shout out, right? Like my mom never ever bashed this man. Like never ever bashed him. She always spoke positive things when she spoke on him. Yeah. She said, I'm going to let you form your own opinion. And then when I got of age, like she would tell me, like, when y'all link up, like y'all going to be powerful together. Right. And so I would like to say my parents like best friends, bro. Like they like best friends. Like they call each other and talk shit to each other on the phone.
Well, that's good. And then I'm sure that helped with your relationship.
Yeah.
And with, you seeing them take what may be unfavorable circumstances and still make the best out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And then another thing too, like my mom had got sick. Like when my brother was born back in like 98, my pop showed up to the hospital, and him and my stepdad, like they knew each other already because they from the same town, but like they had a real grown man conversation. He like, yeah, bro, you got a winner. Like you got a rider. Wow. And so like my stepdad knows that, right? But the fact that they could have that conversation and like my stepdad never had anything bad to say about him. Like it was always love. Yeah. And so for that, it's always love with me. I don't care what I'm doing, who I'm with. At the end of the day, it's always love.
Yeah.
So
I love that. I don't have the same stepdad, real dad story, but I love that.
Jillian, I want to thank you for being my host today, for introducing Cognac Conversation, right? Yes. So this is my baby. I've talked about this shit. I'm ready for it. I hope you're ready for it. I hope y'all ready for it. Hey, and we're going to make it do what the fuck you do.